Subsequent to the 1967 Six-Day War between Arab nations and Israel, U.S.-Syrian relations were put on the back burner, but the agreement of disengagement between Syria and Israel that was inked in May 1974, after the Yom Kippur War in 1973, made an opening to normalize the ties between both nations. Then U.S. President Richard Nixon decided to visit Arab countries and Israel to ease the tensions between these countries. Nixon's one-day visit to Syria came on the heels of stops in Egypt and Saudi Arabia. President Nixon took to the skies aboard Air Force One, Boeing VC-137CS, at the time to travel to Syria to meet with the President Hafez al-Assad face-to-face. On June 15, 1974, when the Air Force One entered the Syrian airspace, 4 camouflaged Migs suddenly appeared from out of nowhere and started forming up off Air Force One's wings. The Air Force One's captain had no clue, as he was not informed by the White House authorities regarding any escort, and he took those jets surrounding the presidential plane as a threat and started taking countermeasures, which included evasive maneuvers right away to save the iconic plane and its VVIP passengers. Air and Space magazine describes the bizarre air encounter as such. Air Force One pilot Colonel Ralph D. Albertazzi, who, fearing attack, banked violently right. For the next 7 minutes, Albertazzi flew a series of evasive maneuvers, including a steep dive. Remembering the incident years later to reporter Kenneth Walsh, author of Air Force One, A History of the Presidents and Their Planes, CNN political analyst David Gergen, at the time a Nixon aide who was on Air Force One, said he wondered if the passengers would survive. He and others had been thrown to the floor. Actually, the whole episode was a massive confusion which could have been very costly. The Migs which surrounded the Air Force One were part of the Syrian Air Force, and they were there to give honorary escort to the plane as it entered the Syrian airspace. But White House officials already in Damascus were earlier informed regarding the Syrian Air Force plans to give Air Force One an honorary escort as it crossed into its territory, but the issue was that nobody informed Air Force One's crew about the high-flying welcome wagon of sorts. After attempting to evade being shot down by the Migs for 7 long minutes, pushing the Boeing 707 derivative to the edge of its envelope, and probably beyond, air traffic controllers informed Air Force One that the Migs were not hostile and were there just as a formality, as described to the White House advance party. After the confirmation from the ATC, things came back to normal in the Air Force One cockpit and the plane took the normal route to the Damascus airport, and landed there safely where President Nixon was received by President Hafez al-Assad and was given 21-gun salute prior to their departure to the presidential palace. No one heard Nixon ever recalling this horrible incident publicly, but he had privately told reporter and author Kenneth Walsh that it really did scare him. No doubt that it was the most shocking start of a head of the state visit to any country, and on top of that Nixon was the first United States president to visit Syria. As the honorary escorts to the heads of states planes are quite common around the world, but this Migs escort was bizarre and one of its kind.